Racial bias in policing remains one of the most divisive issues in America. Some argue the problem is rooted in a few bad apples, while others believe it reflects deeper institutional practices, historical inequities, and incentives that shape policing. Can departments truly reform themselves? Is bias inevitable because police officers are human? Or can training, accountability, and community partnerships fundamentally change the culture of law enforcement? Stay tuned for part two of Can We Ever Eliminate Racial Bias in Law Enforcement?
Are you ready for some controversy? Yeah. Are you ready for some fun? Yeah. Yeah. Are you ready for some laughs? Yeah. Let's get unfiltered with Cycle 4081.
Welcome to part two of Can Racial Bias Be Eliminated in Law Enforcement? So last time we left off, let me just recap what we talked about. We asked if obviously can racial bias ever be completely eliminated from policing. I think we all kind of had our around the same response to that. And then we talked about, is racial bias primarily an individual problem or institutional problem? And we talked about, does implicit bias training actually work? And we left off with, why do public perceptions of policing differ so dramatically across communities? But what we didn't get, because we had some technical difficulties, I asked the question, did you guys have any bad interactions with police? And also some good ones. I'm gonna throw that in there as well. So I know Paul had something, because I think you had mentioned many.
Yeah, I had about three bad interactions with law enforcement. And I had one good interaction, but the law enforcement person was our cousin.
Oh, that's the only reason then.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, hey, it is what it is.
That ain't good odds.
No, it's not.
I was trying to tell you my interaction I had before the thing started messing up was so I was, my friend Rui, the guy you talked to when I was living with you. Okay, so one time my car was messed up or whatever in the shop, whatever. So his ex girlfriend let me use their car or whatever to get to work or whatever till I got my car fixed. So that night they went downtown, Wilmington downtown. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I went to pick them up because they said, "Hey, just come pick us up. You can use the car." So I went to pick them up. I dropped them off home. So I'm going back home. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden, like, I always used to leave my arm out the window, out the left side of the window when I'm driving. All of a sudden, the lights pull over. So I'm like, so I'm in. I pull over in the lane. The cops telling me to pull over. It was some motels that was like on the left side across the street. So they were telling me to pull over there because I pulled over in the turning lane to turn there. And I'm like, okay. So I get in there, I pull in there or whatever, and they tell me to get out the car. They put me in handcuffs. They got like six canines. It's like, sniffing through the area that I was at driving the car. So I'm like, what the hell is this about, sir? What you do with the crack? I said, excuse me.
Oh,
They said,
really?
what, I swear to God. I
They
said,
trying to
what you
set
do?
you up.
Listen, hold on. They said, sir, what you do with the crack? I was like, excuse me, like, what you do with the crack, man? We're gonna find it, man. We're gonna find it. I know you threw it out the window. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He said, man, we know I saw you throw it out the window, whatever. So I'm like, bro, I had my hand out I always leave my arm out the window like that when I drive. What are you talking about? He said, we saw you throw it out the window. They were looking for a car. Somebody did something, a drug dealer, whatever was going on. They was looking for the car that described the car I was driving, which was Rudy's ex car, his girlfriend's car.
Man, nah, nah,
Hold on, hold
nah.
on, hold
Fuck
on,
that.
hold on.
Fuck
Listen,
that. They were
listen.
trying to set you up. They were just trying to
Hold on.
get an
Let me finish.
easy bus.
Let me finish. Let me finish. So they got me with my hands behind my back, like in handcuffs. And he was like, man, back then I was like almost 300 pounds. I was big. He was like, man, you're a big old guy, man. I don't want to have to wrestle you down, chase you down, and all this stuff. So I'm sitting there like, y'all looking stupid right now because I didn't throw nothing out the window. That's how I drive. You got the canines over there looking for this that magically crack that you think you're gonna find, and when you don't find it, I want to see what's gonna happen. So he's like, listen, man, please don't get smart with us, da da da, whatever. So they waste about 20 minutes over there just with the canines doing that. I'm sitting there like, you got to be fucking kidding me. So they finally come over there when they done, right? After it's probably about 30 minutes now. So they come back over there. He's like, all right, Mr. Ward, I'm gonna go ahead and uncuff you. I said, hold on, whoa, nah, it ain't going down like that. I said, wait, so y'all didn't find it was no crack over there, nothing? He was like, no, sir, we were letting you go. I was like, nah, I'm getting all of y'all badges, and I'm going tomorrow down to the police department and turning all of y'all fuckers in for that shit because I told y'all that whatever y'all was doing, I told you this was my friend's car. You wouldn't let me call him to verify it, to clarify that's what his car that that he let me drive for the night. Y'all wouldn't even let me do that. Y'all sat there and kept me in handcuffs for about 40 minutes with y'all was doing that bullshit. And now you just gonna take me out of cuffs like, okay, everything's fine. Go ahead and go. Nah, it don't work like that.
So let me ask you
And
something. When you got pulled over, how long did it take for the canine to actually get there?
no, they were looking, they were already in the area looking for whoever they were
All
looking for had drove a red car.
Oh,
They
okay.
pulled me
Okay.
over when I was coming up. They came right behind me and pulled me over because they thought, eh, I, I guess I didn't fit the description, the car, whoever they were looking for. But I wasn't them. I
So
wasn't that car.
so it's
So
just a red car.
it was a red car, and they thought for some reason he thought I threw crack out the window, or I don't know. I don't know if that was a diversion or what. But he claimed she swore up and down I threw crack out the window. I had my arm, resting out the window.
Hmm.
And they for 40 minutes they had me in handcuffs, and they're sitting there with the canines in that street that they put me over. I got in the lane at sniffing, looking for whatever the hell they were looking the crack, whatever they were looking for. And when it was done, they seen there was nothing there. They came over back over there, uncuffed me, and said, "Okay, you can go." I was
Okay.
so mad.
So let me tell you,
I was so
the whole thing
mad.
about the throwing the crack out the window. First of all, there is no
Go and tell them.
reasonable suspicion that because somebody has an arm out the window or even throwing anything out the window that is crack. As one. Okay. Let's put that aside. So the suspect vehicle was red. Okay. How many red? I drive a red vehicle. How many red vehicles are on the road, right? So that in itself probably would not have been a good stop anyway. Now I'm not going to say that whatever intel that they got beforehand was true or not. I'm not going to say that whatever, but it's not enough. It's not enough to make a stop, because typically what would happen is if you really wanted to get inside the car, you would make the stop based on a traffic violation. That's how you get into the car. Then you can bring the canine in just long enough to complete the stop, right? So it takes 20 minutes to write a ticket or whatever. That's all they got. So after that, once they give you the ticket or warning or anything, it stops. You can go.
The problem was I wasn't driving. I wasn't driving crazy to get them to pull me over to do that.
Wait a minute.
I
Say
was
that again.
driving regular. I wasn't. You know how you just said
No,
a
no, no,
traffic violation.
no. I'm saying you would have known, because when they pulled you over, they would have said, "Hey, I stopped you for whatever traffic violation. So if they didn't say
Right.
that, the whole stop is dirty. And I'm not going to say that it was maliciously done. It was incompetently done at the least. At the
Right.
least, right?
So one of the cops did say when they was over there with the canines or whatever, the nice cop was like, "Man, listen, man, I'm gonna tell you what's going on. Your car fits the description of the guy or whoever they're looking for or whatever. It's a red car, and your car fits the description. This will be over within. If you ain't do nothing, you ain't gotta worry about nothing. This will be over within 30 minutes or whatever." And I'm like, because they wasn't gonna say nothing. The other cops wasn't gonna tell me that.
Right.
They were just like, "Hey, stay there." But that guy told me that because he was kind of next to me or whatever.
Yeah, that ain't good
But
enough. That's not good enough.
yeah,
If they just say
right.
your car fits the description, what? It was a red car or was it a red sports car? Did they have tags? Did it have anything unique about your vehicle that fits the suspect vehicle?
The one guy kept saying he saw me throw crack out the window. He's like, "Man, I saw you do it, man. I saw you throw it right out the window. We don't
So
Nah,
find it,
that,
man.
see,
so he's a
He kept
Steve Austin $1 million man, $6 million
yeah,
man. He gonna see what
right.
you
yeah.
threw out the window at nighttime. Was it at nighttime?
He he kept
And
yeah, I'm saying like so. He kept saying that, but I think he was saying that trying to give a reason why they pulled me over.
Of course,
You know what
of
I mean?
course.
You know,
yeah,
like
he
like
gonna
how
say,
how
he
you,
gonna say
you know how you
crack.
yeah
Yeah.
you know how you just said the port traffic violation whatever da da da. It was nothing I did. I didn't swerve. I didn't wasn't speeding. I didn't do anything for them to even put me over for a traffic violation. So he see my arm out the window, and I guess he used that as saying I threw it out crack.
Okay. So let's get rid of the whole crack thing. The whole crack. I saw you throw out crack out the window. You saw somebody throw something outside the window at night, and you just assumed it was crack. You had no reason, nothing reasonable to say or to indicate you threw out crack.
Right.
So yeah, that whole entire stop was wrong, and this was in Wilmington.
This was in Wilmington.
This
Yep.
was in Wilmington. Yeah, the same Wilmington where they got those guys talking on the by text or the message about black folks. Okay, so all right, we already know what that's about. So yeah, it happens. Unfortunately, and there's nothing to say that it was racially it was racial bias in that, but they saw your arm.
They see my arm because I always had my arm hanging out the window, and my left arm hanging out the window, and I had my right arm on the steering wheel. That's how I used to drive all the time. And honestly, after that, I stopped driving like that.
Yeah,
I
well, you,
started
you
putting
shouldn't
both my hands on the steering wheel.
you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to do that. That was a bad stop, and I guarantee you, if it would have went to court and you had a half decent lawyer or a half decent prosecutor, it probably would have just got thrown out before you even got to court. First of all, but yeah, that type of stuff leads people to think that there's some type of bias in policing. Were the officers black?
Absolutely not.
None of them.
They were all white.
Okay.
I swear to God, they were all
I
white.
have a question. I have a
When I
question.
hold on. When I went down to the next day because I was serious. I went down to the police station downtown. I had no proof because they got up and left so fast. I couldn't see no names. The badges, their names on their badge, I guess, or whatever, because they all just hauled ass and left. So it was like only thing I could say was, "Hey, y'all were looking for a suspect last night in this area on Market Street, blah blah blah," and I got pulled. All I could do was just tell them the story. I really had nothing to. That's what the lady kept saying. She was like, "You have nothing, right? What unit it was to clarify what unit or anything that was going on." And I was like, "Well, y'all were looking."
They knew every time something like that, unless if they was doing it properly, they let the dispatcher know I'm initiating a stop on this particular car with this tag at this location. That's one. If they were doing it properly. Secondly, if they were looking for somebody, it doesn't take long to do an inquiry to see what's going on. Wilmington Police Department is not that large. So go ahead.
So leads me, like I said, they wasn't looking for nobody. They was fishing to try to come up with something. Oh, we got somebody. We see we can get somebody. They saw you. They saw your hand, because you immediately you come to, hey, where's the crack? I saw you throw crack out the window. Swear up and down that so
Exactly.
So
At night.
So I could, yeah, and I can always tell you. I can always tell you what the conversation was after they hauled ass. Bobby, Jimmy, we almost got one. Damn, we almost got one. You know, like because just like you said, Brian, if they was looking for if they was looking for someone,
They would have told me, right?
no, they would have, like you said, they would have did it. It's easy to do an inquiry. It would have been done properly. No, they was out there just looking to see if they can catch somebody.
Right.
Somebody black.
Right. And they had the K9 just to detect.
So
anything.
let me ask you this: Why did that one cop tell me then, when all the other ones walked over by the canines, why did he tell me, hey, I'm gonna let you know what's going on? We're looking for somebody, blah blah blah, and your car fitted the description of the car we're looking for. Why did he say that then?
Did they tell you what the description was?
It was a red car. It was
Okay.
the same red car.
Okay,
The same
so
kind of red car I was driving.
okay, so you're not the only red car in Wilmington, right? So
Right.
if
Right.
that's a general description, very general description. So that means they're going to pull over every red. Let's say it was a whatever car it was. What was it? A red Corvette. So you're gonna pull over every red Corvette because you have a suspect of a crime or a suspect that you're looking for. That doesn't jive. It's too
They
many.
had to give you a generalized statement to cover that ass.
Basically, and like you said, they were probably fishing. So, let me throw out this little stat here, right? Because we're talking about perceptions now, right? Most Americans believe black people receive less fair treatment from police. That's most Americans. Now, this is a Gallup poll. The Gallup poll found that 55% of Americans believe that black people are treated less fairly than white people in police interactions. So that included 80% of black adults and 54% of Hispanic adults and 50% of white adults. Now, the glaring part about that is the 50% of white adults. Historically, black folks would have been high anyway. I wouldn't say 80% is pretty high, but typically I would say somewhere around 65 to 75%. Even 75% is high. Well, you talking about 80% of black adults and 50% of white adults. And remember, we went back to the to that last poll, and it said 50% of white adults, 56% expressed a great deal of confidence in police. So if you got this same Gallup poll, right? So if you got 56%, they expressed a great deal of confidence in police, and you still got 50% saying that y'all darkies are treated less than other people. To me, that's saying something. That's saying a lot.
It's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Can we connect it? Can we connect the dots?
Yeah.
It's saying they know and they approve of it. They don't give a damn. They know. They know that black people are getting treated unfairly by the police, but guess what? They approve that message.
Exactly. Let me give you another one for the last one. So, and then getting into personal experiences. All right. Black Americans report substantially higher rates of perceived unfair treatment, right? And I'm gonna be honest, sometimes that when they perceive as unfair treatment is really not. I had this just to clarify that. I had this lady come in when I was working the desk, and she wanted to complain about an officer. It was a white officer, right? And he pulled her over or whatever. So I asked her the details. I said, "Well, so what's going on? What's?" And I knew the officer. I didn't know the officer at the time, but I knew who it was. And she said, "Yeah, I was driving down this particular street, and I saw the police car do a U-turn and pulled me over, X, Y, and Z." I'm like, "Okay, so what did he pull you over for?" All right, so I think either her lights was out or something. She had an obvious, it was an obvious traffic violation. But she thought, in her mind, she believed that, one, she should not be pulled over because she's a woman and it's at night and is a black woman and it was a white officer. So she definitely didn't have any type of realistic, expectations. But getting back to the poll, this is the Pew poll found that 44% of black adults said they had been unfairly stopped by police because of their race or ethnicity. Now, compare that with 9% of white adults. Black men have obviously reported the especially high rates, but 9% of white adults found that they were stopped unfairly versus the 44% of black adults. So, to me, that's another, glaring thing. And I'm gonna go on some other things on part 3, because I love polls. So, getting back to the next one. This is a personal, I guess a personal opinion thing. Some people believe early intervention systems can identify patterns before serious incidents occur. Others caution that complaints alone may not always reflect misconduct and should be evaluated alongside investigations and evidence. And I'm going to talk about that. So the question for you guys, should officers who repeatedly receive misconduct complaints be removed sooner?
Absolutely.
Well,
get their ass out of there.
So are you saying? I guess I look at it depends on what color they are.
Okay, what we mean if it's a white officer that gets complaints?
I guess it's probably not a good. It's probably not a good thing to do, but yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because I look at it like this: if it's a white officer getting them complaints, you might want to get them out of there before it get nasty.
But what if it's a black officer getting those same complaints?
You might want to get them out of there soon before it get nasty. If it's a black officer getting the complaints, I look at it kind of like it's more of him just going off script, not doing it how he's supposed to be doing it according to the But okay. I think I look at it more if it's a white officer, and I shouldn't look at it like, I guess I'm not supposed to look at it like this, but if it's a white officer, it's more racial towards, because that's it.
Now,
I think you should get them out of there quickly.
Just to let you know, what you're saying, and how you're articulating it is not the officer so much that has a racial bias. It's you. You have the racial bias, because I asked you if it was why should a black officer get more leniency for doing the same exact thing as the white officer?
Well, see, that's the thing. That's where I find it. I don't think it's an even scale.
Oh, well, let me tell you. Life is not even, but when you talk about somebody's career or accusations, they go by, they can compare to other officers. They can go by standards. If an officer, period, any officer, repeatedly gets, complaints, multiple complaints, especially when it comes to, let's say, how they talk to the I guess the pedestrian or the motorist or the victim or whatever. There's no difference. Zero, when it comes to a white officer and a black officer, right? It doesn't matter. Action is action. Now, here's where the difference will come in, and only when the difference is going to come in. If the white officer gets those complaints and it's only from black people, and I'm going to throw a caution in there, right? and never gets none from, white contact.
Right. Yes.
And there's a even amount of, contact. Then that's a time where you would, raise those eyebrows as, more. But when I gave those polls out, right, and black people automatically said they have a bad view of police officers. They believe of their perception that a lot of things are racially motivated. That kind of tilts the scale as well. Matter of fact, it tilts the scale to the detriment of a white officer who may not have those racial bias. So in that case, you really could. The thing with this is, any officer that has complaints, you should pull them off the street and at least have a chat with them at a minimum. And here's where the science comes in. You can go back and look at all the traffic stops they've done, what the outcome of those traffic stops were, or the interactions that he had, for regular calls for service. But you also got to take into account, when you talk about statistics, what area did they serve, right? So, and this is the bad part about statistics, right? So they said white officers predominantly, or officers period, pull over people in black areas more than they do in white areas. Okay, so now you got to look at traffic density. Are you going to have more people on the street in certain areas, in the urban areas versus the suburban areas? So there's a lot that goes into it. So just on its face, you can't pull somebody just because they're white and the suspects or the contexts are black. The same thing should apply to both officers, black and white, regardless.
Right, but can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
I agree with you 100%. But the reality is, this is just me seeing what I see. I don't know the percentage like you do because you've been in that field, but I see more of white officers pulling blacks over with the whole racial thing than I see a black officer pulling a white officer. And in fact, every time I was pulled,
you probably would. I'm gonna tell you why. That's easy.
Every time I was pulled over by a black officer, I had the best experience. Not you ain't supposed to have good experience pulled over by a cop, period. But I'm just saying, it's been like I've never had that kind of, when it's a white officer it's all over you. I see it all the time. It's always a different aggression. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going off what I'm just telling you from seeing my own eyes out my world.
So
I don't, like I said, I don't know the percentage.
So let me tell you, if you look at the percentages, right, you're going to see, and this is probably across the country, you're probably going to see more white officers pulling over anybody because there's way more white officers than there are black officers in numbers, right? Even in my department, my old department, if we had like 1,800, 1,900, people, I think we had total probably somewhere around 300 some odd black officers out of 1,900, right? So you're going to see more of that. You're going to see, especially if you live in a predominantly black area, right? So those numbers really don't tell the story because of how things are set up. But that's a perfect example how just because of that, your perception is what it is. And that's a natural thing. You may have those perceptions, but somebody that's like, say, on the inside or the outside who does numbers or statistics or the police science, they're going to be able to, pinpoint that and say, oh, no, it's nothing, no alarms there. We expect that, but you might be feeling personally, it's like, damn, every time we get pulled over as a white officer, we never get pulled over by black officers. Well, you got to look at the numbers behind that too. Not saying, and I'm not discounting that there may be racial bias in that. I'm just saying it's harder to prove that because the numbers don't always support it. right? Um, what did you say, Paul? Did you answer? Did you talk about that?
And that is why, and that's why I say what you just said. There's probably racial bias, implied bias, but because of the numbers, it's harder to prove, like you said. Now, we all know there's an unwritten rule, unwritten codes that they go by, but because they play the numbers game, it's harder to prove.
Absolutely. Now we had this. I'm gonna tell you about this one incident, and it didn't involve me. One of the sergeants that I knew, he actually pulled another officer in, off the road to have a chat with them. Right. So at this time, our agency had, every time that you pulled somebody over, you did a stop. It was called a traffic data collection sheet. So you had to put all the stuff, whether the state was, registration was in or out of state, male, female, all this type of stuff, right? And also there was a part on there that had a search. So now I'm gonna give credit to that sergeant, who was a black sergeant, right? When he's looking at these things, he's like, well, I noticed that all of the traffic data, that sheets that I get from you, you're always searching black motorists and not the white ones, right? So because we had a sergeant that could that was astute enough to pick those things out on the bottom level, on the working level, not somebody in the office that crunched numbers and he caught that early. And tried to, not saying if that was the case, because it was a predominantly black area, but you can tell if he says, okay, if you had 10 white motorists and you had 50 black motorists and you got 98% searches on the 50 and 1 on the white one, that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Right,
that's a problem. So, it does have ways of correcting itself, but when you look at across the country, chances are it ain't gonna happen. Not enough, at least. So, yeah, I do agree with that. My take on it is, if any officer who repeatedly received misconduct complaints, and I'm not talking about if they made mistakes like they had they misinterpreted the laws or the rules or anything like that, or somebody just didn't like the outcome of their situation. That's usually the problem. They don't like the outcome of that situation, right?
Right.
When we're talking misconduct, the way you talk to people, excessive force, false charges, illegal stops. If you get complaints like that, I don't care if they white, black, Latino, Asian, whatever, yank their ass off the street and have a talk with them at a minimum. So, yeah, okay, that was. I think that was easy. Now, because we had that, and I told you about the traffic data stuff, we had that, right? Body cameras came into effect with a lot of departments, and it's funny enough that the body cameras came in because the public had this outcry. We need body cameras. We need body cameras. We need to be protected. Da 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 da. And what do you think happened? It protected the police more than it did the citizens, because now all the stuff that they was doing was caught on camera. No defense on that. And I'm gonna tell you another thing too. There's a lot of police officers that'll let somebody go, right? Even though they're really not supposed to, they'll give them a break. Get rid of the alcohol, stamp out the weed. I'm gonna give you, have somebody come pick you up, right? But once those body cameras come in, guess what? All that's out the window. So it was a definite double-edged sword. So now we're gonna talk about body cameras. Body cameras can provide valuable evidence and improve transparency, because that's what they're for, both ways. However, debates continue over when cameras are activated, who controls access to the footage, which is, to me, minor, and whether accountability consistently follows documented misconduct. Okay, so do you guys think body cameras are making policing more accountable?
No,
No? Why not?
You said
because I want to say, it's supposed to be. It's
It's
supposed
supposed to.
to.
Okay. Okay.
I really, body cameras keep everybody in line, transparency,
Mhm.
man. But these, I mean, in these times they don't give a damn. I mean, you could see the stuff on the camera. It's like,
You
like
know, I'm
you-
a, I'm gonna agree with you on that one. I'm gonna tell you the funny part about that, right? I personally believe it does make policing overall more accountable, way more, right?
Right.
However, it amazes me all the time where I see these videos on YouTube or wherever social media, and they're videos of body worn cameras and
Right.
cell phone footage, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that amazes me is every police officer should know by now that it is perfectly okay and legal for somebody to record you with their cell
Yes.
phone, right? But yet you have, and police make no mistakes. Police make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. It's probably one of the few fields that they expect everybody to be perfect, like the medical field, the police field, and I guess the fire department as well, right? They always think that it should be a 100% perfection, and that's not realistic. However,
Right.
I hate when I see officers telling somebody to put their phone down. You can't record it, or they even take the phone.
And they do it all the time.
And it's, to me, it's like I don't think that's a problem with policing as far as institutionalized or through what do you call it, the policies and procedures. That's because you got dumb motherfuckers out here being police officers.
Yeah.
And some,
Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
let's be honest, just like in every industry, there's people that don't need to be there, or people
Yes.
that can't critically think enough to do the job. I think that happens often. And it is a very difficult job because they got to know local laws, they got to know civil laws, they got to know state laws, federal laws, they got to know county code or city code. There's a lot of things, and they change constantly. So you always have to be updated on training and know how to apply it in that particular situation. So the reason why I think that the body cameras are making policing more accountable is because all those from back in the day, or even not too far back in the day, that was doing all this extra stuff, when they got body cameras, guess what? They can't do it because all they got to do is have the complaint, and then they can review the body camera, and next thing you know, it's being published now. And that's a big thing now. Like, they are pushing to have those things, the video, available to the public, right? So knowing that as a police officer, a lot of them won't do what they normally would do. And again, that could be a good thing, but it's also a bad thing for the citizen contacts, because a lot of times they're not going to go, out of policy. And that happens a lot.
Right.
I'm going to be honest. It happens a lot.
Right.
They go out of policy to help somebody or not to put them in a bad situation. So when you have that camera, that's a wrap. Nobody's doing that, So yeah, I do think that's an easy one. But that was a big thing in policing when it came to racial bias, because we always saw the stuff that got caught on somebody else's camera that kind of forced that. Like, if you didn't have the camera, it would have been what the police say and what they say, right? The other thing that was pretty big was in the news, like within the last 5 or 6 years, is a term called qualified immunity. Okay, so now I'm gonna give you the background on that. Supporters say legal protections allow police officers to make difficult decisions without constant fear of lawsuits. Critics argue they can make it harder for victims of misconduct to obtain remedies. So here's the situation. Qualified immunity means that if an officer acts within the scope of his job, without basically without ill intent, knowing that you're going to make mistakes, but without ill intent, that they're covered by the job. Not saying that the citizen can't sue the police department or anything like that, but they can't personally be held liable for that. And to be honest, only reason I would agree with that is because I did the job, and I know there's plenty, countless incidents where you got 1.5 seconds to make a determination on whether somebody live or die, based on whatever information that you get. So people think people think that qualified immunity means that the police officer could do anything that he wants, and they can't be held liable personally. So the public was in a big uproar about qualified immunity, was pushing the government to get rid of it. So, question: does qualified immunity, after even what I said, reduce accountability, or does it protect officers from excessive litigation? And for those out there who don't know what excessive litigation is excessive lawsuits or frivolous lawsuits.
So you saying that's qualified? Go ahead, Paul.
No, and you said, okay, so I understand what qualified immunity is. Now, I know you said the options would protect officers from excessive
litigation.
Legal litigation. What was the first one?
Or does it make it harder for victims of misconduct to obtain remedies?
Man, that's tough. I want to say, damn. I want to say a little of both, man, because I can see on both sides. I really can see on both sides, because I'm gonna be honest with you. Sometimes I gotta put myself in the shoes of law enforcement, right? And I'm telling you like this: somebody gonna sue me because if I only got 1.5 seconds to make a judgment call, something, hey man, I gotta go with my gut, man, and it may not be it may not shake down the way it's supposed to shake down, but but then on the flip side, I can understand that the frustration from a citizen who may encounter a situation where they feel like, damn, he or she did this, and there's no recourse, or I can't get no resolution. So, man, that's a tough one.
Well, now here's what I say. It doesn't make it harder for them to obtain remedies for misconduct, because it doesn't alleviate the issues with the police officer as far as their misconduct. You can always sue a department and get paid. You can always sue or actually push for that officer to get reassigned or whatever, or get retrained. Now, the key is misconduct. If the officer went outside of what the training told him or her to do, or outside of policy, then the qualified immunity doesn't cover that. So, for example, if let's say Dimitri was on the road, he's a police officer, he pulls somebody out of the car, and let's say he just yanked him out and just started beating him because he didn't like the way he looked, right? Totally illegal in any type of way, right? And I'm not saying that it has not happened before, especially back in the day, because I've heard the stories, where you was in a place that you weren't supposed to be in their eyes, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't cover you. You're not covered by that. You're not covered by qualified immunity. So qualified immunity means that if you did everything that you were supposed to do within reason, that they can't go after you personally, your personal assets, because you was acting on behalf of the state.
Now, Paul, does that equate as the immunity that, what did Brian just say? What kind of immunity you said again?
Qualified immunity.
Qualified immunity.
What Brian just did, is that qualified immunity right there?
What do you mean?
When you told him cut that noise out in that deep voice,
Oh,
does that qualify to me?
Classified immunity.
yes, it is
Cut
because
that noise out.
And they get you stationed in another part of the house.
look,
And they,
I acted within the scope. So, yeah, but yeah, that's a thing that I think people just don't know what it actually is, and I think when feelings get caught up in that, they don't care. And I've noticed that, like I said, if it ain't me, I don't care. So when I tell people these things, it's not me who's in the jackpot, right? I'm telling them because this is how it is on both sides. So, that's something that not gonna say everybody, but a lot of people wish or believe that it qualified immunity means you have immunity to do whatever you want, and that's not true. But it does protect an officer for making those decisions.
I have a question, and I don't. This may be off topic, but maybe it may not be. And I always wondered about this. And Brian, this specifically you and Marky, because y'all in that area. What was the outcome of that situation with the dude, with the black dude who was found rolled up in the carpet?
Oh, I don't. You know what? I don't think they got any resolution on that. To be honest, I don't recall any. All I know is
there was no said resolution.
Yeah.
They made it seem like they were still working on it and things that weren't discovered. Like I guess there's discovery or whatever. But I haven't heard any resolution to that.
All I know is that the things that I've heard about it didn't jive as far as it being anything accidental.
So,
but
if I'm correct, right? If I'm correct, they found a brother rolled up in the carpet and he didn't have his organs. Am I fair to say that?
That I don't remember.
Yes, that's how I remember.
Oh, okay.
That's crazy, man.
Okay.
That's crazy as hell.
Yeah.
But also, Paul, I think there was like fingers missing or something like that, or a couple fingers.
Man.
So it was more to it than what they, initially told you.
Okay, and was that the same case as the other dude who was in a I don't know if it's a patrol car, but he was getting bumped. He was getting oh damn, what I want to say. I think it was two different cases. What was the dude's name? Freddie.
Freddie Gray. Okay, Freddie Gray. Freddie Gray. That's Baltimore.
That's totally different.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What that one was about? What was that one about?
So yeah, this is more towards the whole thing, right? But the thing is, it was black officers involved in that as well, right? So the racial bias, I think they can pretty much throw out the window on that.
Right.
So Freddie Gray was a known drug dealer in the area.
Okay.
And for some odd reason, they chased him, they caught him, and they put him in the back of the van, and they transported their prisoners to the van. So while he was in there, they said that he got injured on somehow, maybe what they used to call, what I heard, they said this thing called a screen test. That's basically where you drive and you slam on the brakes and,
Yeah.
Right, so that was one of the accusations. Also, they said that when they put him in the van, you could see that he wasn't fully healthy. Okay, but that was a little different because, there's a lot of things in there that could have pointed away from what something that the officers did. But on the inside, I remember when I was a young officer and some of the older guys was telling me what that, certain things that they did to unruly prisoners when they was transporting, because prisoners get in there and they do all types of stuff too. But in that case, it was a van, and I don't know what the situation with that was. The whole situation was crazy. But yeah, but that's a good example. That wasn't racial bias because it was a whole bunch of people that was involved in that. I think it was the fact that now anytime that the police is involved and there's a death of a citizen or even a non-citizen, the people are not going to be happy.
Right.
And like I said, I'm not saying that they did everything right because I don't know, but I know a lot of the things that people accused them of or they got charged with was wrong or could not be proven because he didn't die immediately anyway. So, but that's a bigger story. We could make that a whole different topic though. But that's a good question though. Yeah.
Brian, I do have one question before we get back on topic, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
When we're talking about disciplinary actions of an officer who does something foul or is under the gun for doing something foul, even if it's not true. At what point, where does internal affairs get in? And I understand, well, correct me if I'm wrong, their job is to be the lawyer for the police officer, protect the police officer.
No.
Okay, I had it wrong there. Yeah, but at what point does internal affair get into it?
So it depends on the particular agency. Now, I can tell you one of the agencies that I know of, everything doesn't go to internal affairs because some things could be handled on the lower level. And it depends on what the complaint is. If the complaint is an egregious complaint, a lot of those, that goes up directly to internal affairs. Now, a complaint from a citizen can go directly to internal affairs. It doesn't have to go through that officer's supervisor or the next supervisor or the next supervisor. It don't have to go that way. It can go directly to internal affairs and they'll investigate it. And a lot of times when they investigate it, the officer doesn't even know they're being investigated until, it's resolved or they got extra questions, But gotcha. Definitely. But that's on topic. That is on topic. And I guess people do need to know that, especially when you're talking about something with racial bias, that could be handled on a lower level. But
yeah, because a lot of people think, a lot of like people who are outside of the law, we think, and this was my thinking as well until you just explained it to me. And when you watch TV, and they paint it this way as well, internal affairs don't want to get looked at badly, and therefore the police. They're supposed to be, I guess, some type of investigate you, but they're on the side of, hey, let's clear it up, let's make it not look like it really is, and let's not let the police, department look bad.
Yeah, that's
what I've always gotten from it.
It's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
All right, so getting it. Well, what we talked about before, right? Police misconduct and ripping people off the street. Officers off the street, right? Some view representative hiring, and I think Paul mentioned this at one point, or one of you did. Some people view representative hiring as a way to build trust and legitimacy. And if you don't know what representative hiring is when you start hiring based on the demographics of the people that you serve.
Marky said that. Marky
said that. Okay. So others argue that diversity alone is insufficient if organizational culture and policies remain unchanged. So my question for you guys is, should police departments more closely reflect the racial demographics of the communities they serve? And I know Marky's opinion on that, but we're going to start with Dimitri since you're on my left.
Yeah.
Why? You didn't think I was going to let you off easy with just a yeah. Why?
Well, I think it should reflect because I don't know, like if
somebody help him out.
Like, yeah, somebody help me out.
Okay, so
get a lifeline.
I think so because when you have a representative hiring that more closely reflects the diversity, we share common values, we share common understandings, and then it also potentially decreases the implied bias, because Okay, here's an example. Officer Glass is patrolling this particular community, right? Okay, I'm in the community. I see Officer Glass. First of all, Officer Glass looks just like me. More than likely, Officer Glass has some of the same experience growing up that I have. So with that, we have a shared understanding of some things that a white officer or a Hispanic officer would not be able to understand. So when you don't have those understandings and you go into a neighborhood, yeah, there's going to be a problem because the knowledge level, the lack of understanding. That's
Okay.
just that's just how it is.
I'm going to co-sign on that
Oh,
one, and I'm gonna give you a real life situation that kind of supports exactly what you said, right? So one night, working a midnight shift, I'm driving through Baltimore City. I'm going back to my area, but I'm cutting through Baltimore City because that's how the geography is. And I noticed another officer that worked the midnight shift with me. He was a white officer. He pulls over and he's struggling with a two black guys, on a parking lot. So I pull in, I'm going to back him up, whatever. And I'm grabbing one of them. He's grabbing the other. And I'm noticing something, right? That didn't seem right. So the guys, they weren't mad at each other. They was mad at him, right? So I'm asking, I start asking some questions, whatever. And this is what happened. Officer A, this is a white officer, is driving down the street at night, and he sees two cars driving next to each other, and they pull over and they start roughhousing, like, fighting or whatever. So he intervenes, and he's going to, obviously, as an officer, he sees somebody committing an assault, a mutual assault in the presence of an officer. So you make an arrest. That's the rules, right? So I noticed, and I was like, that something's not right. So come to find out, I'm talking to the guy. He says, look, I'm driving down the street, and I look over, I see my man in the next car. I yell at him, pull over. So they pull over into the parking lot. They get out, and they start, basically, you know how we do when we see somebody, a man, right? We start hugging and, kind of punching each other, or,
Dapping up and everything like
that
that.
type of
Yeah,
stuff. And it looks to the outsider who's not familiar with that type of culture, right? To him, it looked
yes,
like they were fighting. So I said, okay, I'm talking to the guy. I said, listen, I told the guy, I said, Officer A, I said, listen, they weren't fighting each other. They're not even mad at each other, right? So that kind of gives you a little hint. I said, this is how we do. When we see people that we haven't seen in a long time, or we, whatever, this is what we do as black folks. So his thing was, the rule says he understood when I told him. So the rule says once you put handcuffs on somebody, you take them in and you got to process them. And then, you can release without charge from the station. I said, no. I'm sure
right,
they'll be perfectly okay if you just take the cuffs off them now instead of yanking them down to the station,
right.
and fingerprint photographing and all that type of stuff. It's a mistake. Okay, we understand. You understand now. Just take the cuffs off, right? He listened to me, and no
Okay,
problems, no complaints, whatever. Hey, sorry about that. He don't know. He's he ain't from this area. He just doesn't know that's how we do, right? Perfect example of what you just said. Now,
prime example.
had I not been
Yes,
there, right, then things would have went left really, really
that ass is going
fast.
down to the station,
Exactly. And what would have
all
happened?
because they was dapping up.
Exactly. What would have happened
Yep.
if the backup wasn't like me, who also didn't understand,
Yep.
right? So you can see that can be a very, very bad
Now, Brian.
situation.
Now, Brian, I heard what Mitra said, and it's sort of along the lines of what I was saying yesterday. Like, it will make sense to have basically house the people, the housing that you have to have the same people patrolling them. What made me think about that, and there's a way around it. Remember, I was saying tearing down the infrastructure and the way that you do things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's not necessary. I thought about it. I was thinking about it today. I wrote about a couple of police officers, and like I said, I try to think differently now that my son is an officer. And I was thinking, how about integrating? Well, the sources, the force is so short now. You don't see too many people riding side by side unless they're training.
Right.
But it would be good to have the different, you know, black and white riding together. I remember on what was that? Sanford and Son.
Right.
You had the guy
Perfect
who
example.
didn't understand our community. Then you had the guy who he was basically his translator.
Right.
And once he understood what was going on, he knew how to handle him.
Exactly.
I think we should at some point try to get back to that because, and just
Well,
like the movie Colors, I think that's Mitri, one of his favorite movies or one of the
well,
movies he
well,
liked.
Marky,
But like the movie
they
Colors.
tried that already with
Huh?
Training Day. They tried that already with Training Day.
Well, yeah, it was more effective in Colors. And then in Colors, you had a guy who, towards the end, he got it, but there was an attempt.
Right. But that does happen.
A lot of.
That does happen. So one, there's in most places you're not going to have an even number. You're not going to have an even number of officers. The demographics just don't match, right? So the thing is, there's things that you can do, and some agencies do that. They have these training classes where you learn about other people's cultures, right? And they even role play a lot of times, and they talk about certain things. We talk about, why do I think this person's, suspicious? And it's because in their culture, when talking about the Latino culture, it's disrespectful to look them, straight in the eye. So they don't give you the eye contact. Whereas some other cultures, you might automatically think, oh, this motherfucker's lying, right? Or he's about to do something. So we do have those training classes that gets people that experience. Some people learn on the job. Like obviously that guy, Officer A, he learned that night, But I think the thing is you have to be exposed to other cultures, not just white officers, black officers too. You gotta understand the lingo. You gotta understand the culture. You gotta understand why people feel a certain way. It would resolve so many problems. So I'm gonna tell you this: a lot of people don't like it, but I think there should be either the academy should be much longer, or they should require college in certain courses so they would know these things or actually have some experience in these things. But that's a money issue, So I think that is at the minimum that should be done to fix that.
So Brian, to answer what you was asking me, what you were basically asked me was, should coaches stick to their area or whatever because they're understood, like officers that it's in the same culture or whatever of the criminals or whoever, not criminals, but like the people that they are assigned to arrest or whatever. Should they stick to that?
No,
because they're more understood because of what they went through.
No. I'm going to say no. When I say the department should reflect the community they serve, I'm talking about the overall department. So if you have, let's say, if you have a particular, let's say Wilmington, right? Let's say Wilmington's 60% white, 20% black, and the rest is other, right? I think the police department should be 60% white, 20% black, and the rest other, right? They don't always have to don't put a black officer just in a black neighborhood, or a white officer in a white neighborhood. They need that exposure because what's going to happen in real life, practical, applications, you're not going to always stay in your neighborhood. You're going to always, you might be assigned somewhere else. You might have to go back up somewhere else. You might go to another jurisdiction. So you need to be well-rounded. And the only way you're going to be well-rounded is to get that either some training or some exposure. And that means not being just, I only deal with black folks. So when I go over there and handle the white folks, I don't know what they're talking about. And I don't know how they do certain things. Right. So you have to do something to get that done, a little extra. And that's not by putting all the black officers in the black areas, the white officers in the white areas, and the Latino officers in the Latino areas. So even then, when you have a Latino community, right, and you know that most of the people you're going to come across are speaking Spanish and you don't know Spanish, guess what? Then that department should recognize that and give you a class in conversational Spanish which we did in our department, or that person you should have at least somebody that's in that area that speaks Spanish, right? At least somebody. If you got 20 people that handles that area and there's a predominantly Latino community, have 2 or 3 people that's in there that speak Spanish or is from that particular community, right?
Can I make a unfiltered confession?
Yes.
If I was law enforcement, I probably would have been Lonzo. Training day. I'm almost 98% sure that I probably would have been Lonzo, and and they wouldn't have taught me anything, but I just said, "Hey, mommy, hey, mommy."
Hey, we're gonna have another.
You would have been Samuel L. Jackson in that movie Lakeview Terrace or whatever that's called.
Oh Lord! So look, we can have another episode when we talk about some of the things, the secret things that happen that the public don't know, and there's some good things, some bad things, whatever. But we can make a full episode out of this. I can tell you probably an hour.
I know
stuff,
you know all of it.
Hey, look, there's a lot of us out here. Like I said, people don't know a lot of things that happen, out of the public view or outside of the paperwork, right? That benefits them, and sometimes it doesn't benefit them. But we can have a conversation about that. But I'm gonna go into I'm gonna thank you guys for actually jumping in there, and we're gonna do part 3 of this particular episode. So stay tuned for part 3, and we're gonna talk about, just ahead to give you guys a heads up, we're gonna talk about aggressive policing. We're gonna talk about the blue wall of silence. If you guys ever heard about that. We're going to talk about the media coverage, and we're going to talk about fatal police encounters and community policing. So then, of course, we're going to have our lightning round. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of different things. So stay tuned for part 3, and I hope you come back.
Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Unfiltered with Psycho 4081. Big respect to our guests for keeping it real, and love to every listener rocking with us week after week. This conversation ain't over yet. Stay locked in for the next episode coming soon. Until next time, keep it unfiltered with Psycho 4081.